The Nebraska Territory stretched before Abigail Harper like a sea of golden despair, its endless prairie grasses swaying under a merciless October wind. At 13, she stood alone, her slight frame trembling as the dust from her father's retreating wagon settled into the earth. The creak of its wheels, once a constant in her young life, faded into the horizon, leaving only silence and the bitter sting of betrayal. Caleb Harper, her father, had driven away without a backward glance, his final words burning in her ears. "You're nothing but a burden, girl. This land don't suffer weaklings." Abigail's knees buckled, and she sank to the hard-packed earth, her copper-red hair whipping across her tear-streaked face. The patched calico dress she wore, her mother's last gift before consumption claimed her, offered little protection against the chill that seeped into her bones. Overhead, storm clouds gathered, their dark edges promising rain before nightfall. Thunder rumbled, a low growl echoing the turmoil in her heart. She was alone, utterly alone, in a wilderness that cared nothing for her survival. Yet beneath the crushing weight of abandonment, a spark flickered within Abigail, a stubborn ember her father hadn't snuffed out. She would not die here, discarded like a broken tool on the unforgiving frontier. Her mother, Eleanor Harper, had taught her to read the land, to find hope in its rhythms. "The prairie provides, Abigail," she'd whispered in her final days, her voice frail but resolute. "Trust it, and it will carry you through." Abigail clutched the small leather pouch hidden in her pocket, its contents a lifeline to her mother's memory. A tarnished silver locket, a smooth river stone, and a fire striker Eleanor had carried from their old life in Philadelphia. These were her only possessions now, her only tether to a past as distant as the stars. She rose shakily, scanning the horizon. To the east lay Willow Bend, the nearest settlement, 20 miles away, a 2-day walk for a girl in her weakened state. To the west, wild lands stretched toward territories where native tribes roamed, despite the U.S. Army's push to confine them. North and south offered only more prairie, more ways to die unnoticed. The first raindrop struck her cheek, cold and heavy, as she started toward a line of cottonwood trees to the north, their leaves trembling in the gathering storm. Water first, then shelter. Eleanor's lessons grounded her against the panic threatening to swallow her whole. The sky darkened rapidly, the wind carrying the scent of wet earth and danger. Each step through the waist-high grass felt heavier, her thin shoes sodden and fraying. Caleb Harper had traded her mother's wedding ring for whiskey 3 days earlier, a transaction that barely surprised Abigail. She'd known his cruelty had no bounds, but she hadn't expected this, hadn't imagined he'd abandon his only child outright rather than barter her to a settler for profit. "You're just like your mother," he'd snarled that morning, his breath sour with liquor. "Full of fancy notions and no spine. This country chews up dreamers and spits 'em out." The rain fell harder, plastering her hair to her scalp. Abigail reached the cottonwoods, the creek she'd hoped for churning with sudden rainwater, its banks swollen and treacherous. Crossing was impossible tonight. She crouched beneath the largest tree, its branches offering meager shelter as the temperature plummeted. Her teeth chattered, her limbs growing numb, the calico dress clinging like a shroud. She wouldn't survive without fire, without better cover. With trembling hands, Abigail gathered fallen branches, her mother's teachings guiding her. Everything was soaked, but she cleared a patch of drier ground and arranged the least sodden sticks. From her pouch, she withdrew the fire striker, its metal cold against her fingers. Spark after spark fell uselessly onto the damp wood, each failure drawing a sob from her throat. The sound terrified her. It was the cry of surrender, echoing her mother's final, rattling breaths. "I won't die here," she whispered fiercely. "I won't let him win." Lightning split the sky, illuminating a hollow at the base of the cottonwood, half hidden by gnarled roots. Abigail scrambled toward it, pushing aside decades of leaves and debris. The space was small, barely large enough for her to curl into, but drier than the open ground. She squeezed inside, hugging her knees to her chest, the rain's assault muted here. She would survive the night. She had to. Hours passed in a haze of cold and fear. Every snapping twig became a wolf's footfall, every rustling leaf a rattlesnake's warning. The darkness conjured cruel visions, her father's sneering face, her mother's pale beauty hollowed by illness. "The land remembers," Eleanor had often said, her voice soft with reverence. "It holds kindness and cruelty alike." Abigail wondered what the land would remember of her if she perished here, a forgotten girl, another casualty of the frontier's hunger. Dawn broke with grudging reluctance, the storm clouds retreating but not vanishing. Abigail crawled from her hollow, every muscle protesting. Her dress was damp, her hair a wild tangle, but she had survived. The creek had receded slightly, its waters brown with silt. She knelt at its edge, cupping the icy water and drinking deeply. Her stomach growled, a sharp reminder that water alone wouldn't sustain her. Her mother had taught her to forage, wild onions, cattail roots, late-season nuts, but the berries were gone by October. Near the water's edge, Abigail spotted wild leeks and dug them up eagerly, brushing away the dirt before biting into one. The sharp flavor stung her tongue, but it quieted her hunger momentarily. The question of what to do next loomed like the storm clouds overhead. Willow Bend was her only hope of human contact, but it meant facing her father's world, a place of pitying glances and predatory interest from men who saw a lone girl as an opportunity. Westward lay wilderness, the domains of tribes like the Cheyenne, whose names struck fear into settler hearts. North or south offered no better prospects, just more ways to fade into oblivion. A distant howl shattered her thoughts, the unmistakable cry of wolves. Not close enough to threaten yet, but a stark reminder of her vulnerability. She needed more than a hollow tree to survive another night. With renewed urgency, Abigail gathered materials for a shelter. Fallen branches, river reeds, anything she could carry. Her hands, soft despite her father's complaints, soon bled from the effort. Still, she persisted, weaving branches and reeds into a crude lean-to against a fallen log, as her mother had shown her during happier times by this creek. It wasn't much, but it would block the wind and hide her from prying eyes. Exhaustion pulled at her limbs, the emotional weight of her abandonment compounding her physical fatigue. She crawled into her shelter, intending to rest for a moment. Sleep claimed her swiftly, and she woke with a start, heart pounding. The sun hung low, painting the prairie in crimson and gold. She'd slept for hours, wasting daylight. Worse, a nearby snap, a heavy, deliberate sound jerked her awake. Not a rabbit or squirrel. Something larger. Abigail pressed herself against the back of her shelter, peering through the gaps in her weaving. A figure moved along the creek bank, too small for a bear, too large for a coyote. A human. For one wild moment hope flared. Had her father returned, regret softening his heart. The hope died as quickly as it sparked. Caleb Harper never regretted anything, least of all shedding a daughter he saw as a liability. The figure drew closer, and Abigail's breath caught. Not her father, not any settler. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-burnished skin and long black hair tied with a leather strip. He wore buckskin leggings and a cotton shirt, a knife sheathed at his hip, a rifle slung across his back. The beadwork on his vest, blue and white swirls, spoke of a culture rich with meaning. Cheyenne, her mind whispered, conjuring every terrifying tale she'd heard around settler campfires, scalping, kidnapping, torture. Her mother had dismissed such stories as fear-mongering, but fear didn't care about truth. It gripped Abigail now, rooting her in place. The man knelt by the creek, filling a water skin with deliberate movements, his eyes scanning the surroundings. When his gaze swept over her shelter, Abigail was certain he'd seen her, but he didn't pause. She should stay hidden, should pray he moved on. But a violent shiver betrayed her, rustling the branches audibly. The man spun toward the sound, his knife drawn in a single fluid motion. He approached, each step silent despite the fallen leaves. "Come out," he said, his English clear but accented, each word deliberate like stones in a river. Abigail froze, terror paralyzing her. "I will not ask again," he continued, his voice calm but firm. With trembling limbs, she crawled from her hiding place, rising to face him. She lifted her chin, determined to mask her fear. "If you're going to kill me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt, "make it quick." The words echoed the grit of frontier women her mother had admired, like Martha Ballard, who'd faced wolves and storms unyielding. A flicker of surprise crossed the man's face, perhaps at her defiance. He sheathed his knife, though his posture remained alert. "Why would I kill you, child?" he asked, his tone curious as if she'd posed a riddle. Abigail blinked, thrown by the question. "Because that's what Cheyenne do to settlers." "Everyone says so." The words felt foolish, a child's parroting of adult fears. A sharp exhale escaped him, almost a laugh but humorless. "And settlers always speak truth about my people." He shook his head, a gesture carrying centuries of weariness. "I am Tsetserhestistsi, Cheyenne in your tongue." The correction was a rebuke, and Abigail flushed, her mother's lessons in courtesy surfacing. "I'm sorry," she said, the apology sincere. Eleanor had taught her to respect others' identities, even in a world that forgot such niceties. He studied her, taking in her torn calico dress, the mud-caked shoes, the crude shelter that spoke of desperation. "Where is your family, child?" he asked, his voice softening though his posture stayed alert, a hunter ready for any threat. Abigail's throat tightened, the weight of her answer pressing against her chest. "Gone," she managed, the word a stone sinking into the creek's depths. "Dead," he pressed, his eyes narrowing. She shook her head, tears threatening. "My mother died 2 years ago. My father," the truth was too raw, a wound still bleeding. "He left me here yesterday." The man's expression didn't change, but a hardness settled in his eyes, a judgment not of her but of the man who'd failed her. "Left you to die," he stated, making the betrayal real in a way Abigail hadn't faced. She nodded, a single tear escaping, which she dashed away fiercely. "You are hungry," he observed as her stomach growled, a traitor to her pride. He reached into a pouch, withdrawing a strip of dried meat, its surface dark and glistening. He offered it without flourish, a practical gesture that felt like a lifeline. Abigail hesitated, her mother's warnings about strangers clashing with her hunger. But pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Thank you," she murmured, taking the jerky and tearing into it. The smoky flavor was rich, a reminder of the buffalo hunts her mother had described, stories of Cheyenne and Sioux tracking herds, their lives woven into the land's rhythm. As she ate, the man watched, his face unreadable. "Night comes," he said when she'd finished, his eyes lifting to the darkening sky. "Your shelter will not keep wolves away." Abigail glanced at her lean-to, its flimsy branches a pitiful defense. She had no answer, only the spark refusing to let her surrender. "What is your name, child?" he asked, cutting through her despair. "Abigail Harper," she replied, the name a tether to her mother's memory. He nodded, sealing it in his mind. "I am Running Wolf." The name conjured frontier tales her mother loved, wolves racing under moonlight, their howls a song of freedom. "What does it mean?" she asked, curiosity overriding fear. "Swift hunter," he said, gesturing to the creek, its waters glinting like silver. "Though the land hunts us all now." Abigail couldn't argue. The prairie was a hunter, its vastness both cradle and grave. Running Wolf's gaze returned to her, weighing options she couldn't fathom. "You will die here," he said, his bluntness a cold wind. "If not from cold or hunger, then from wolves or men worse than wolves." The truth was a weight she carried, but hearing it sharpened her resolve. "I know," she said, her voice small but firm. "There is a place," he continued, his words measured. 3 days' walk. My people's winter camp. You would not be the first outsider taken in." The offer hung, a fragile bridge over uncertainty. Abigail's heart warred, hope against fear, trust against a world that had betrayed her. "Why would you help me?" she asked, searching his face. His eyes held a sorrow as deep as the prairie. "The land remembers," he said, echoing her mother's wisdom. Abigail's breath caught, the coincidence too profound to dismiss. It was a sign, a thread connecting her past to this moment. She took a deep breath, weighing her choices, death alone or an unknown future with this stranger. The decision crystallized, clear as the creek's waters. "I'll go with you," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. Running Wolf nodded, expecting no less. "We leave now." Night offers cover. Abigail gathered her mother's pouch, her only possession, and abandoned her shelter, its branches a relic of desperation. As they stepped into the darkness, she felt a shift, shedding the skin of Abigail Harper, settler's daughter, and stepping into something new, a story unwritten, a path she would forge with every step. Chapter 1: The Stranger's Mercy. The Nebraska night enveloped Abigail and Running Wolf, its darkness wrapping them like a quilt stitched with stars. The prairie grass whispered under their feet, a soft counterpoint to the distant howl of a coyote, its cry answered by another, closer but not yet a threat. Abigail struggled to keep pace with Running Wolf's long strides, her moccasins a small comfort against the uneven ground. The air was heavy with the scent of earth and frost, a reminder of the winter looming beyond the horizon. Each step was a defiance, a refusal to let her father's betrayal or the prairie's indifference claim her. Running Wolf moved with a hunter's grace, his eyes scanning the shadows for pursuit. The revelation that men were hunting her, hired by Caleb Harper to drag her back for profit, had transformed their journey into a desperate flight. Abigail's mind churned with questions, but she held her tongue, sensing the need for silence. The frontier was a place of unwritten rules, and Running Wolf's vigilance taught her one. Survival demanded focus, not chatter. "We must reach the ridge before dawn," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, pointing to a shadowy outline. "Settlers patrol when light comes." Abigail nodded, her breath a faint cloud in the chill. Her father had boasted of the Army's campaigns to clear the plains, forcing tribes onto reservations to be civilized. The irony was bitter. Caleb Harper, who'd abandoned his daughter, saw himself as part of that force, a pioneer taming the wild. "My father said there aren't any free tribes left in Nebraska," she ventured, breaking the silence. Running Wolf's expression was a mask in the moonlight, his voice carrying a dry edge. "Your father knows as much about my people as I know about Philadelphia's Independence Hall." The reference startled her, a reminder of his time among white men. "How do you know I'm from Philadelphia?" "Your speech," he said, glancing at her hands pale against the grass. "Your hands too soft for a frontier girl. They carry the city's mark." Abigail looked down, her fingers curling. Alina had been proud of those hands, insisting she maintain the manners of an Eastern lady even as their cabin in Willow Bend grew meaner. "My mother was a schoolteacher," she said, the words spilling out to anchor herself. She taught me to read, write, cipher numbers, speak properly. She said knowledge was a light no one could take away. Running Wolf nodded, his eyes on the horizon. Knowledge is a tool, like a bow or a fire. But the land is your teacher now. The words resonated, a bridge between her mother's lessons and the prairie's realities. Abigail was learning to see through Running Wolf's eyes, to read the angle of a shadow, the bend of a grass blade, the ripple of a creek promising water. These were the skills that would keep her alive, not the penmanship her mother had drilled. Their path led into the broken lands, a maze of limestone cliffs and ravines that seemed to shift with each step. The terrain was a brutal teacher, its rocks scraping Abigail's hands, its inclines burning her legs. Running Wolf set a pace that tested her limits, adjusting it when she stumbled, his attentiveness a lifeline. He pointed out a smudge of smoke, a settler's cabin to avoid, and a scattering of deer tracks, their imprints a promise of food. "These signs tell stories," he said, kneeling to trace the tracks. "Learn them, and the land will never betray you." Abigail absorbed each lesson, her mind a sponge for this new language. In Philadelphia, her mother had read her tales of Daniel Boone, a frontiersman navigating the wilderness with mystical skill. Running Wolf was no myth, but his knowledge felt profound, a living connection to the land her mother loved. "In the city," she said, "we had maps and street signs. Out here, the land is the map." Running Wolf's lips twitched, the closest to a smile. "Yes, and it never lies if you learn its truths." The words were a gift, a reminder she was not powerless. By midnight, they reached a ravine where a spring bubbled among moss-covered rocks, its gurgle a welcome sound. Abigail sank to the ground, trembling, while Running Wolf built a fire with a bow drill, its friction a quiet song. "Can you teach me that?" she asked, mesmerized by the spark. "Tomorrow," he said, his eyes glinting with approval. "Tonight you learn this." He showed her how to arrange stones to trap heat, how to listen for the difference between a rabbit's rustle and a wolf's tread. They ate dried buffalo meat and cress, the greens sharp and vital, a taste of the prairie. As the fire's shadows danced, Abigail's thoughts turned to the camp. "Will they accept me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Running Wolf considered, his gaze distant. "Some will welcome you, some will wait, some may never trust." "It is the same among settlers, yes." Abigail thought of Willow Bend, where her mother's eastern ways marked her as an outsider, where neighbors shunned them when illness struck. "Yes," she agreed, a bitter edge. "People are people everywhere. But ways of living differ," he said. "Ours will be strange, hard. You will work, learn, prove yourself. Harder than losing my mother," she asked, the words raw. "Harder than my father's betrayal." Running Wolf's silence was a weight, his eyes holding hers. "Your wounds are teachers," he said. "They show where you must grow strong." The perspective was a revelation, a challenge to the stoicism her mother instilled. Abigail nodded, a seed of strength taking root. By the time they reached the ridge, the eastern sky was lightening to gray. Abigail's legs gave out, and she sank into a grove of scrub oak, her feet bloody within her ruined shoes. Running Wolf surveyed their position, then crouched beside her. "Let me see," he said, gesturing to her shoes. Embarrassed but exhausted, Abigail peeled away the tattered remains. Her feet were a mess of blisters, some oozing. Without comment, he withdrew a pouch, revealing a greenish paste smelling of pine and herbs. With gentle hands, he applied it to her wounds. "What is that?" she asked, wincing at the sting before relief followed. "Pine resin, yarrow comfrey," he listed. "Old medicine." "Thank you," she murmured, overwhelmed by his kindness after months of her father's cruelty. He nodded, unwrapping a bundle of dried buffalo meat and berry cakes. "Eat," he instructed. "Then rest." "We move at dusk." Abigail ate gratefully, the food hearty. Exhaustion tugged, but a question lingered. "Why did you help me?" she asked sleepily. Running Wolf, keeping watch, turned to her. "I had a daughter once," he said, his voice low. "Yellow fever took her 4 summers ago. She'd be your age now." The admission hung heavy with grief. Abigail wanted to offer comfort, but he'd turned away. "Sleep," he said. "Your body needs healing." Despite her racing thoughts, exhaustion won. She curled beneath an oak, her shawl a pillow, and fell into a dreamless sleep, Running Wolf's promise anchoring her against the uncertainties ahead. Chapter 2: The Pursuit. The Nebraska dusk painted the prairie in amber and violet as Abigail and Running Wolf descended from the scrub oak grove, their silhouettes blending into the lengthening shadows. Abigail's new buckskin moccasins, crafted by Running Wolf's deft hands, cushioned her battered feet, a small mercy against the relentless terrain. Each step was a testament to her resolve, a defiance of the father who'd cast her aside and the wilderness that sought to claim her. Running Wolf moved with the silent grace of a panther, his eyes scanning for threats, human or otherwise. The air carried the crisp bite of autumn, laced with sage and the distant promise of rain. "We travel north now," Running Wolf said, his voice low but commanding. "Through broken lands, then east to camp." "Safer but longer," Abigail nodded, her breath visible in the cooling air. The revelation that men were hunting her, hired by her father, Caleb Harper, to drag her back for profit, had transformed her journey from survival to a race against capture. The open prairie was too exposed, its vastness a trap for the unwary. The broken lands, with their limestone cliffs and hidden ravines, offered concealment, but at the cost of a grueling path. Abigail's mind churned with questions as they moved, her city-bred curiosity clashing with the need for silence. "How do you know where to go?" she whispered, marveling at Running Wolf's unerring direction among the featureless grasses. He pointed to subtle markers: moss on a boulder, the wind-bending prairie stalks, a star just visible above the horizon. "The land speaks," he said. "You must learn to listen." She absorbed his lessons, storing each fragment like a pioneer hoarding provisions for winter. Her mother had taught her to read books and cipher numbers, but these skills felt useless against the frontier's demands. Running Wolf's teachings, spotting a deer's trail, gauging a storm's distance by thunder's rhythm, were a new language, one she was desperate to master. "In Philadelphia," she said, "we had cobblestone streets and gas lamps. I never thought I'd need to read the land like this." Running Wolf glanced at her, his eyes unreadable. "Your city ways are not useless. Reading, writing, these are tools like a bow or a knife. But the land is your teacher now." His words settled deep in Abigail's chest. She was no longer just a settler's daughter. She was a student of the prairie, and her survival depended on how quickly she could learn. Their path grew steeper as they entered the broken lands, a labyrinth of limestone outcroppings and shallow ravines carved by ancient rivers. The terrain tested Abigail's endurance, her legs burning, her hands scraped raw from grasping rocks. Running Wolf set a challenging pace, adjusting it subtly when she faltered, his vigilance unwavering. He pointed out a smudge of smoke, a settler's cabin to avoid, and deer tracks promising food. "You see these signs," he said, tracing the hoofprints. "They tell stories. Learn them and you'll never be lost." By midnight, they reached a ravine where a spring bubbled among rocks, its gurgle a welcome sound. Abigail sank to the ground, trembling, while Running Wolf constructed a nearly smokeless fire using a bow drill, a technique that fascinated her. He spun the spindle with ease, coaxing a spark from tinder gathered along their route. "Can you teach me that?" she asked, watching intently. "Tomorrow," he replied, a flicker of approval in his eyes. "Tonight you learn this." He showed her how to arrange stones to reflect heat, how to position herself to maximize warmth while keeping watch, how to distinguish a rabbit's rustle from a predator's tread. "Always sleep with one ear open," he advised, "even in safe places." They ate in silence, sharing buffalo meat and berry cakes, supplemented by cress from the spring's edge. The greens were peppery, a contrast to the hearty meat, and Abigail savored them, her hunger constant. As the fire cast shadows across the ravine, her thoughts turned to the camp. "The others in your camp," she began hesitantly, "will they accept me?" Running Wolf poked at the fire, considering. "Some will welcome you. Some will watch, wait to see what you become. Some may never trust." He met her gaze. "This is true everywhere, yes. Even among settlers." Abigail thought of Willow Bend, where her mother was shunned as that fancy Philadelphia lady despite years of kindness. "Yes," she agreed softly. "People are the same, I suppose." "People, yes," Running Wolf nodded. "But ways of living are not. Our ways will be strange, hard. Harder than watching my mother die while neighbors cross the street to avoid our cabin," Abigail asked, a bitterness spilling out. "Harder than my father trading her ring for whiskey. Harder than being left to die alone." Running Wolf was silent, his expression unreadable. "Your heart carries many wounds," he said. "Some fresh, some old." "This is good, good," she echoed, incredulous. "Wounds teach where we are weak, where we need strength," he explained. "Without wounds, we learn nothing." The idea of acknowledging pain rather than masking it felt like a key turning in a locked door. "In my camp," he continued, "you will not hide your wounds but strengthen them, not let them fester." Their rest was shattered by a rifle shot echoing across the prairie. Running Wolf extinguished the fire with dirt, his movements swift. "Someone hunts at night," he said, his voice taut. "This is not good." Abigail's pulse quickened. "My father, or his men, cannot tell," he replied, gathering their possessions. "We move now. Stay low, step quiet." They left the ravine, keeping to shadows. Abigail mimicked his low crouch, placing each foot as taut, toe first, then heel, rolling rather than stomping. Another shot rang out closer, and Running Wolf pulled her behind a boulder. "Listen," he whispered. Voices carried, rough with drink and malice. "She can't have gotten far," one said. "Harper said she'd be easy pickings. Worth good money in Grand Island if we nab her first." Abigail's blood ran cold. These weren't rescuers but predators, seeing her as a commodity. Running Wolf's expression hardened. He pointed to tall grass 30 yards away, their next cover. They moved silently, Abigail's heart pounding but her steps steady, driven by the need to escape. The voices faded as they distanced themselves, but fear clung to Abigail. How many were searching? How far would they track her? After an hour without pursuit, Running Wolf allowed rest in a depression beneath an embankment. Abigail sank down, nerves frayed. "They were looking for me," she whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. "Men who see children as things to be sold," Running Wolf confirmed, his voice tight with anger. "This sickness festers in many settler hearts. What if they find us?" Abigail asked, voicing her deepest fear. His hand moved to his knife. "They will not take you." The declaration carried a vow's weight, and Abigail believed him. Whatever his reasons, grief for his lost daughter or a code of honor, Running Wolf would not abandon her. "We cannot cross open prairie now," he decided, studying the sky. "Too exposed. We go north through broken lands, then east. 3 days becomes 5, maybe 6, but safer," Abigail said, echoing his words. He nodded, a flicker of approval. Better alive in 6 days than dead in 3. The revelation that men were hunting her shook Abigail, but it steeled her resolve. She curled against the embankment, knees to chest. "Running Wolf," she whispered as he took watch, "thank you for everything." He glanced back, his expression softening. "Sleep, Abigail Harper. Tomorrow you learn how not to need thanks." As she drifted into uneasy slumber, Abigail pondered his words. Not needing thanks seemed impossible. Her survival depended on his skill. Yet his tone suggested a partnership, not charity. Perhaps in the days ahead, she would discover what that meant. For now, she dreamed of soft footsteps and hands strong enough to shield her from the world's cruelty. Dawn broke over the broken lands, painting the limestone cliffs in pale gold. Abigail and Running Wolf navigated the rocky maze, its outcroppings both shield and challenge. Her muscles ached, but the moccasins protected her feet, and the salve worked miracles on her blisters. "This was Otto land once," Running Wolf said, breaking the silence. "Before government, men came with papers and promises." Abigail absorbed this, piecing together her mother's lessons about the Nebraska territory. "What happened to them? Pushed south to reservations," he replied. "Some fought and died. More died from settler diseases." He pointed to a ridge. "They built prayer circles there, on high places. Some still stand." Abigail squinted, seeing only rocks, but she was learning Running Wolf saw what her eyes missed. "Your people, Cheyenne, Apache, others, why do you live free?" she asked. "Because we are few," he said. "We move with the seasons, avoid the bluecoats. Different tribes, different tongues, but we found peace among ourselves." The idea of rival tribes uniting fascinated Abigail, a contrast to settlers' distrustful isolation. "That's your strength," she said. He nodded, pride in his voice. "What white men never see." They traveled in silence, Running Wolf pointing out edible plants and navigation tricks. By midday, they reached a limestone arch overlooking a spring-fed pool, its water sparkling. "We rest here," Running Wolf decided. Good water, good position. Abigail sank onto a sun-warmed rock, trembling. While she refilled their water skin, Running Wolf set a snare near a game trail, explaining each step. "Tonight we eat fresh meat," he said. "Better for strength." The prospect of hot food made Abigail's mouth water, but a question resurfaced. "You speak English so well," she said. "Better than most settlers." "How?" Running Wolf's hand stilled. "I lived among white men, before the war between states. A school in Ohio. Christian men thought they could save Indian soul by teaching white ways." Abigail tried to imagine him in a classroom, his spirit confined by desks. "What happened? 5 winters I stayed," he said. "Learned reading, writing, numbers. Learned how white men think, what they fear. Then I returned to my people." There was more, but his tone closed the door. "I'm glad you learned English," she said. "Otherwise, I'd be more useless out here." "You are learning," he replied, his voice softening. "That is not useless." The affirmation warmed her, a rare gift from a man who measured words like rations. Their rest was shattered by distant voices, men's voices from the south. Running Wolf climbed the arch for a view, his movements swift. Abigail's heart pounded as she waited, fear a heavy weight. He descended, grim. 4 men, armed, moving this way. Cannot tell if they're the same. He gathered their possessions. "We move now. Leave no signs." They abandoned the spring, Running Wolf dismantling the snare and obscuring footprints. The limestone maze grew complex, its passages and alcoves a natural fortress. "How do you know where we're going?" Abigail whispered, awed by his confidence. "Sun, moss, wind," he said, pointing to cues. The land speaks. Their path grew treacherous, the ground unstable. Abigail slipped on scree, skinning her palm. Running Wolf stopped. This way is too slow. He scanned the terrain, pointing to a fissure in a cliff. Shelter there and vantage point. The climb was grueling, Abigail's arms trembling. By the time they reached the fissure, a shallow cave concealed by rock, she was gasping. From this perch, they could see the terrain below while remaining invisible. Running Wolf positioned himself at the cave mouth, eyes fixed on the maze. "What if they track us here?" Abigail asked. "They must find our trail first," he replied. "We left little. But if they come," his hand rested on his knife, reassuring her. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated by faint movement below. The hunters, if it was them, seemed to search blindly. As evening fell, the sounds faded. They search without purpose, Running Wolf concluded, relaxing slightly. "Good," Abigail exhaled, relief tempered by exhaustion. "Will they give up?" "Not if money drives them," he said pragmatically. "But they cannot search forever." The cave offered little comfort, its stone floor unyielding. They ate the last of Running Wolf's provisions, the cold seeping through Abigail's dress. Noticing her shivers, he offered a hide blanket. When she hesitated, he draped it around her shoulders. "Sleep," he advised. "Tomorrow is harder." Sleep eluded her, her mind racing with fears of the hunters, the cold, the uncertain welcome at the camp. "Running Wolf," she said, "what will I be at your camp?" "A guest. A burden." In the darkness, his silence was heavy. "You will be what you make yourself," he said. "Nothing is given freely, not food, shelter, belonging. Each contributes. You know, reading, writing. That has value. You can learn more. Will they let me? Some will. Some won't. No promise of ease but fairness, based on what you do, not where you came from." The answer wasn't comforting but honest, more honest than anything in Willow Bend. "I can learn," she said, determination firming her voice. "I want to learn." Running Wolf made a sound of approval. "Sleep. Learning begins with strength." Exhaustion won, and Abigail drifted off, the blanket a shield against the night's chill. She woke to gray dawn and an empty cave, panic flaring until Running Wolf appeared, carrying a rabbit he'd snared. "You're still here," she blurted, relief flooding her. He looked puzzled. "Where else would I be?" Shame washed over her. She'd expected betrayal as her father taught her. When I woke alone, understanding dawned. "I will not leave you until you are safe with my people," he said solemnly. "This is my word." They ate the fresh rabbit, its warmth restoring strength. As they prepared to leave, Abigail asked, "How did you learn to survive out here?" "Was it always your way?" "Both," he said. "My father taught me hunting, tracking, the old ways. Then the white man's school tried to erase them. When I returned, I had to learn again what was beaten out of me. Like learning everything twice," she said, connecting it to her shift from Philadelphia to the frontier. He nodded, recognition in his eyes. "Yes. This is why you learn fast." The day's journey took them deeper into the broken lands, a realm of cliffs and wind-sculpted rock formations. Abigail felt at home in this alien landscape, its strangeness mirroring her displacement. By midday, they reached a limestone ridge Running Wolf called the Backbone, its spine offering a view of the prairie to the east and hills to the west. "No sign of hunters," he noted, satisfaction in his voice. They moved south. Relief should have followed, but Abigail felt weariness, vigilance draining her. Running Wolf noticed her faltering steps and called a longer rest beneath an overhanging ledge, where a spring seeped from the rock. "Drink," he instructed. This water gives strength. The cold, sweet liquid revived her, and as they rested, Running Wolf withdrew a bone whistle, its carvings intricate. He blew 3 soft notes, barely audible. "What's that for?" Abigail asked. "Telling friends we come," he replied. "Friends, always others," he said cryptically. "Eyes that watch, ears that listen." The idea they'd been observed unsettled her, but a hawk circled overhead. Running Wolf watched it, then nodded. "We changed direction. East now, not north. Why?" "A message," he said, gesturing to the hawk. "Safe passage awaits east." Skepticism flared had a bird signaled him. But his certainty was unshakable. 3 circles, wings dipped on the 3rd. "Friends wait with horses, 2 miles east across the river." Abigail hesitated, but his judgment had proven sound. "You trust them?" "With my life," he replied. "And yours." They descended toward the river, its glint a beacon. As they walked, Abigail pondered this unseen network of allies, their signals a world apart from settlers' aggression. The sun hung low, painting the river in gold as they reached the tree line. Running Wolf surveyed the crossing, a swift 50-yard span of churning water. "I don't see anyone," Abigail whispered. "They see us," he replied, raising his hand in a precise gesture. He whistled the same notes. Movement stirred on the far bank. 2 figures emerged, leading horses. "Friends," Running Wolf confirmed. The men, in native and settler clothing, mirrored his gesture. The older, gray-streaked hair framing a weathered face, was Iron Elk. The younger, with a hawk-like gaze, was Swift Fox. They urged their horses into the river, crossing with ease. "Running Wolf," Iron Elk greeted, his eyes fixed on Abigail. "You are the one he risks for." "The abandoned one." Abigail nodded, unsure how to respond. "Little time," Iron Elk continued, glancing at the sun. "Bad men follow. Cross now, talk later." The news that hunters pursued her sent fear through Abigail. With Running Wolf's help, she mounted behind Iron Elk, clutching the saddle as the horse re-entered the river. The crossing was terrifying, the current pushing, water swirling high. Abigail clung to Iron Elk, eyes shut against the spray. On the far bank, her limbs trembled. "We ride hard now," Iron Elk announced. "Camp is half a day's journey." "How many follow?" Running Wolf asked, mounting behind Swift Fox. Iron Elk held up 4 fingers. "Same men plus 2 more. They have a tracker from Fort Kearney." The news silenced them. A military tracker would be skilled. "How close?" "Too close," Swift Fox said grimly. "Found your cave, follow to the ridge." Abigail's stomach clenched. The horses would leave clearer tracks, but Iron Elk exchanged a glance with Swift Fox. "We have plans for tracks." They set off at a trot, following a game trail. Abigail studied their companions. Iron Elk's quiet authority, Swift Fox's restless energy. They rode for an hour, the terrain shifting to hills with oak and cottonwood. In the fading light, antelope grazed, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Darkness fell, and Iron Elk halted beside a creek fed by a spring, its thicket offering cover. "Rest horses," he said. "Eat quickly, ride more." Abigail's legs buckled as she dismounted, unused to riding. Running Wolf steadied her. Swift Fox offered cornmeal cakes and venison, his glance evaluating. She ate hungrily, observing the men's low conversation, their gestures toward the river. When Running Wolf joined her, his expression was grave. "The men who hunt you are more determined than we thought." "Because of the reward?" she asked, recalling the hunter's words. He shook his head. "Not just money. Your father rides with them." The revelation hit like a blow. "That's impossible. He wanted me gone." "Caleb Harper offers rewards for your return." Running Wolf said, contempt in his voice. Claims you were stolen by savages. Makes himself a grieving father, not a man who abandons a child. The betrayal cut deeper than expected. Her father, not content with abandoning her, cast himself as a victim, her rescuer as a villain. How do you know? Swift Fox heard at a trading post, he replied. Your father's name, your description, a reward promised. Understanding dawned cold and clear. The Thompsons, she said. They have a son, Daniel, 19, set to inherit their store. My father's been pushing a marriage. Running Wolf's expression confirmed he'd reached the same conclusion. You are property to him now, not a daughter. If they catch us, they will not, Running Wolf interrupted. Tonight we use Iron Elk's plan. By morning the hunters follow a false trail. Before Abigail could ask, Swift Fox approached, leading the horses. Time to move, Iron Elk said, carrying high-draped bundles. Running Wolf told you of your father, Abigail nodded, throat tight. Iron Elk's face softened. I know father's unworthy of the name. You are not alone. What's the plan? Abigail asked, straightening. Iron Elk handed a bundle to Swift Fox. We make a false trail. Swift Fox rides south with all horses, leaving clear tracks. He carries these decoys to look like humans. Abigail examined the bundles, wooden frames wrapped in hides and clothing, human-sized. Clever, she said. Then how do we reach camp? We walk, Running Wolf replied. 3 people leave a lighter trail. We take hidden paths. Swift Fox secured the decoys, then mounted. He looked at Abigail. You cause trouble, white girl. But Running Wolf says you have a strong heart. We will see. He rode south, hoofbeats fading. We wait 1 hour, Iron Elk decided. Then go north through a hidden valley. The hour passed in silence, Abigail fighting exhaustion. When Iron Elk signaled, they moved, navigating shifting terrain, prairie, thicket, ravines. Abigail lagged, her body protesting, but Running Wolf steadied her. Near midnight, they reached the hidden valley, a passage between ridges concealed by growth. They stopped to rest, Iron Elk returning with berries and roots. Eat, he instructed. Give strength. Abigail ate mechanically, barely tasting the bitter roots. How much farther? Tomorrow nightfall, Iron Elk replied, if no trouble comes. Rest now, Running Wolf advised. 2 hours, then move. Abigail curled in the grass, sleep claiming her instantly. She woke to Running Wolf's touch, the night deep. Time to move, he said. Iron Elk heard something. They left with urgency, avoiding open ground. Dawn found them in an oak forest, its canopy offering concealment. Iron Elk halted, raising a hand. Running Wolf pulled Abigail behind an oak, his body tense. Voices approached, English, not native. Tracks end here like they vanished, one said. Impossible. You're the best tracker Fort Kearny's got. These ain't normal Indians. Ghosts, Cheyenne, they know tricks. Abigail glimpsed the party, 5 men led by a tracker in a cavalry hat. Morgan's offering $50, one said. Plus what we get selling her to Thompson. Her father's voice cut through, move faster. I want my daughter before those savages reach their camp. Abigail's heart stopped. Caleb Harper was yards away, his possessiveness chilling. Iron Elk exchanged a glance with Running Wolf, then slipped away, leaving a trail to the west. The tracker spotted it. Movement west. The hunters shifted, crashing after him. Come, Running Wolf whispered. Iron Elk leads them away. We go north. Will he be safe? Abigail asked as they moved. Iron Elk knows these woods better than his hands, Running Wolf assured. He'll rejoin us at camp. They pressed northward, the forest thinning into meadows. We are close, Running Wolf said as midday neared. 2 hours, perhaps 3. A rifle shot echoed, then another. Abigail froze. Iron Elk would not fire, Running Wolf said grimly. They hunt him. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. The rifle shots reverberated across the meadow, each a hammer blow to Abigail's resolve. Running Wolf gripped her arm, pulling her toward a stand of cottonwoods. Was that Iron Elk? She asked, trembling. He leads, does not fight, Running Wolf replied, jaw tight. They signal or shoot blindly. A third shot, more distant, confirmed his assessment, but his tension didn't ease. We cannot cross open ground now, he decided. Too exposed. We follow the river. Abigail followed his gaze to a line of trees marking a tributary, snaking northward. Will it lead to camp? Yes, longer but safer, he said, checking the sky. We reach by nightfall if no delays. They moved quickly, staying within the tree line. Fear drove Abigail beyond exhaustion, her legs moving mechanically. When they reached the tributary, a wide creek with a swift current, Running Wolf led her into the water. Walk here, he instructed. Leaves no tracks. The icy water numbed Abigail's feet, her moccasins little protection. They waded upstream, sometimes on the muddy bank when obstacles blocked their path. Her sodden dress dragged, but she recognized the strategy's wisdom. A tracker, even from Fort Kearney, would struggle to follow a trail that vanished in water. After an hour, Abigail paused. I hear something. Running Wolf stopped, listening. His eyes narrowed. Horses coming fast up on the ridge. Through foliage, Abigail saw mounted figures on the ridge. They're cutting ahead, she realized. They know where we're going, Running Wolf nodded. Someone guides them who knows these lands. The loss of their terrain advantage chilled her. What do? We change plans, he said, resolute. No more running. We fight. The shift startled Abigail. Fight? There are 6 all armed. They expect us to run, he replied. Not to face them. He led her to a bend where the bank rose steeply, forming an overlook. From here, they could see the ridge and their path. We are not alone, Running Wolf said, pointing to a stand of birch trees 100 yards away. Abigail squinted, catching a flash of color. Our people watch these borders, sentinels. They've seen the hunters, seen us. They wait for my signal. He raised his hand in a complex gesture. An answering signal came. 4 warriors, he translated. 2 with rifles. Hope flickered, but Abigail noted, we're still outnumbered. Numbers are not everything, he said, a predatory smile transforming his features. They hunt in strange lands. We defend our home. They think they are hunters. We make them prey. The reversal ignited something fierce in Abigail, a desire to end the pursuit. What can I do? You are bait, he said bluntly, and trap setter. He outlined a bold plan exploiting the terrain. Abigail gathered branches, vines, stones, her hands moving with skill. When the trap was set, she positioned herself as directed, visible from the ridge but not obvious, a lone girl separated from her protector. Time stretched agonizingly. Abigail's wet clothes chilled her, but she remained still, conserving energy. Voices from the ridge signaled the hunter's approach, their tone excited. She slumped, feigning defeat. 2 men descended, rifles ready, moving with confidence. There she is, one hissed. Harper's girl alone. Grab her before the Indian returns, the other urged, advancing. At 20 yards, the first man triggered the deadfall, a lattice of branches Abigail helped rig. It crashed down, entangling him. His companion swung his rifle, but Running Wolf emerged from concealment, covering the distance in silent strides. The rifle fired into the ground as Running Wolf's knife pressed against the man's throat. Shouts and gunfire erupted from the ridge. The warriors had engaged the remaining hunters. Abigail secured the trapped man with vines, his curses ineffective. "Harper said you were helpless," he spat. "My father knows nothing about me," she replied calmly. Running Wolf bound the second hunter, handing Abigail the captured rifle. "Watch them," he instructed. "I joined the others. I've never fired a gun," she admitted. "Point and pull," he said. "But you won't need to." "They see you have it." He vanished toward the ridge. Abigail positioned herself with cover, the rifle heavy but familiar from watching her father. The captives glared, but her steady gaze silenced them. Gunfire ceased, replaced by shouts. Long minutes passed, the sky golden with sunset. Movement signaled Running Wolf's return, with two warriors, all bearing signs of struggle but moving as victors. "It is done," Running Wolf announced. The others fled. "Your father is with them." Relief washed over Abigail. "He's alive." "Yes," Running Wolf said, contempt clear. "Ran first, left his men. What about Iron Elk?" "Safe," a warrior replied. "Reached camp, sent us." Swift Fox had also returned, his decoy plan successful. "What happens to them?" Abigail asked, gesturing to the captives. Running Wolf exchanged glances with the warriors. "We take them to camp. The council decides." The captives paled, settler tales of torture vivid. "They won't be harmed," Abigail stated, looking at Running Wolf. He nodded. "No harm if they cause none. My people are not your stories." The warriors bound the captives' hands, leaving feet free for walking. As they prepared to move, Running Wolf approached Abigail. "You are wet, tired, but you stand strong. You fought well today." "I didn't fight," she demurred. "Fighting is not just weapons," he replied. "You fought with mind, courage. Stood your ground. This is a warrior's heart." The praise warmed her, a balm against her father's disdain. The party set off northward, the warriors flanking the prisoners, Running Wolf and Abigail leading. He described the camp, a valley of lodges and structures, home to families from diverse tribes. "Not an easy life," he cautioned. "All contribute. But it is a life of honor." "Will they accept me?" Abigail asked, the question resurfacing. "Some will welcome you, some will wait. A few may never trust," he said. "Would you prefer lies?" "No," she replied. "Truth is hard, but lies poison." He pointed to bluffs. "We are close." At the crest, Abigail saw the camp below, smoke rising, figures moving. It was small, 20 lodges, but to her, it was sanctuary. A warrior's call alerted the camp. Figures approached, led by Iron Elk, his step slightly favored but his smile warm. Beside him was a young woman with keen eyes, and behind them Swift Fox and others. "Welcome," Iron Elk said, "to those who choose freedom." Abigail met his gaze, then Running Wolf's. "I choose freedom," she said, her voice strong. "I choose to stay." Chapter 4: The Final Stand. The Nebraska dawn broke cold and clear, a pale light spilling over the plains as Abigail and her band of Cheyenne and allied warriors departed the winter camp. The air was sharp with frost and sage, the ground crunching beneath their horses' hooves. Abigail rode beside Running Wolf, her posture steadier after days of training. Though a novice rider, she managed her bay mare with growing confidence, the bond between horse and rider a partnership born of necessity and trust. The warriors, Swift Fox, Red Hawk, and Stone Hand, rode in a loose formation, eyes scanning for Caleb Harper's men. Their silence was one of focus, understanding that the confrontation could reshape their community's freedom. Abigail was silent, her thoughts a tangle of resolve and trepidation. Facing her father, his whiskey-soaked rage, his cruelty, stirred dread she couldn't untangle. Running Wolf glanced at her. "You are ready." "I have to be," she replied, jaw set. "This ends today." He inclined his head, a gesture of respect. "Remember the plan. You speak only when I signal. Stay behind me until safe." "I remember," she said, heart pounding. "I'm ready." Their destination was Willow Bend, the settlement of Abigail's childhood, a place of bitter memories. Scouts confirmed Caleb's presence at Baxter's Tavern, rallying men for another attempt to reclaim his stolen daughter. The irony was a blade. Her father, who discarded her, spun a tale of devotion to secure a marriage to Daniel Thompson. She could hear his slurred voice weaving lies. But lies, as Running Wolf said, poisoned the spirit. Today, Abigail would wield truth. The journey crossed the prairie, then hills offering cover. The warriors moved with stealth, hooves muffled by soft earth. Swift Fox signaled clear paths. By midday they reached the ridge overlooking Willow Bend, its cabins and streets sprawled below. Smoke curled and a blacksmith's hammer clattered. Baxter's Tavern stood at the heart, windows glowing. Running Wolf called a halt. "We divide now," he instructed. "Each to your position." Swift Fox and Red Hawk circled east, cutting off the tavern's back. Stone Hand took the west, rifle ready. Running Wolf and Abigail approached from the north, using a creek bed for cover. Swift Fox paused, eyeing Abigail. "You bring danger, white girl," he said. "But you've proven your heart." "Don't falter." "I won't," she replied. Running Wolf studied her. "Last chance to stay back." She shook her head. "I need to face him. If he brings soldiers, the camp won't stay hidden." His eyes softened. "Then we go together." They followed the creek bed, the terrain familiar to Abigail, wildflowers with her mother, her father's tirades. Willow Bend was a cage she'd escaped, and returning felt like stepping onto a battlefield armed with newfound strength. The creek led within 100 yards of the tavern, its raucous laughter spilling out. Running Wolf crouched behind cottonwoods, motioning Abigail to follow. "We wait for Swift Fox's signal," he whispered. She peered through branches, glimpsing her father on the porch, bottle in hand, rallying men with tales of savage kidnappers. His voice carried belligerent, and the sight ignited fury, not fear, but defiance against the man who'd discarded her. Running Wolf's hand steadied her. "Patience." Anger is a tool, not a master. Minutes stretched, the tavern's noise grating. A soft whistle, Swift Fox's signal, pierced the air. Running Wolf rose. "Stay here," he said, eyes locking with hers. "I will call." She nodded, throat tight, watching him approach the porch, rifle slung, hands raised to show no threat. The men fell silent, hands on weapons. Caleb lurched up, face reddening. "You," he roared. "The savage who stole my girl." "Where is she?" Running Wolf's voice cut through. "I stole no one, Caleb Harper. Your daughter was abandoned, left to die. I gave her shelter, as any man of honor would." "Lies," Caleb spat, staggering. "You took her to your filthy camp. Hand her over or we'll burn your people out." The men cheered, liquor-fueled. Running Wolf didn't flinch. "You speak of honor, yet cast out your blood. Abigail Harper is under our protection. She chooses to stay." Caleb's face twisted. "She's mine. My property." Running Wolf's voice dropped to a dangerous edge. "She is no man's property. She is free. You will hear it from her," he signaled Abigail. Heart pounding, she stepped from the cottonwoods head high. The men gasped, rifles lowering. Caleb's jaw dropped, bottle shattering. "Abigail," he croaked. She stopped 10 yards from the porch, Running Wolf at her side. "I'm here, father," she said, voice clear. "But not because you wanted me back. You left me to die, traded me like mama's ring. I'm not your daughter anymore. The words cut through his lies. The men shifted, loyalty wavering. Caleb's face purpled. You ungrateful, he lunged, but Running Wolf stepped between, knife drawn. Stay where you are, he warned. Abigail held her ground. I choose to live with the Cheyenne, with people who value me, not what I can be sold for. You told these men I was stolen, but you threw me away. Tell them the truth or I will. A murmur ran through the crowd. A trapper stepped forward. Is this true, Harper? You left your girl, Caleb sputtered. She was a burden, slowing me down. Enough, Abigail's shout silenced him. You're no father. You're a coward who'd sell his child for a bottle. These people saved me when you wouldn't. They are my family now, the trapper spat. I didn't sign up to hunt a girl who don't want to be found. Harper's lying. Others nodded, rifles down. Caleb's eyes darted, panic replacing rage. You'll regret this, girl, he muttered, stumbling back into the tavern. Running Wolf spoke. Caleb Harper, your daughter is under our protection. Any man who seeks her will answer to us. Leave this land. The warning, backed by the unseen warriors, was clear. The men dispersed, some apologizing, others avoiding Abigail's gaze. The confrontation was over, bloodless as she'd hoped, but the victory felt hollow, tempered by severing ties with the man who should have been her protector. Running Wolf placed a hand on her shoulder. You spoke well. The truth was your weapon, Abigail nodded, throat tight. It's done. He won't come again. Swift Fox and the others emerged, faces a mix of relief and approval. You shamed him, Swift Fox said, grinning. That's a wound he'll carry. Abigail managed a smile, the weight settling. The party remounted, riding back under a sky streaked with stars. Abigail's mare moved steadily, the rhythm a counterpoint to her thoughts. Willow Bend was behind her, a chapter closed. Ahead lay the camp, her new home, where she would carve a place among people who valued her courage. As they crested the ridge, the camp's lodges came into view, fires a beacon. Abigail felt belonging, fragile but real, anchoring her to this new life. Epilogue, a new beginning. The winter camp stirred with dawn, its inhabitants moving with efficiency honed by necessity. Abigail emerged from her lodge, her deerskin dress soft, moccasins silent on frosted grass. Her muscles ached from weeks of adaptation, riding, weaving, reading the land, but her spirit was alight with purpose. The camp was no longer a refuge. It was a home chosen and fought for. 10 days had passed since the confrontation at Baxter's Tavern, 10 days of integration into a vibrant world. The camp was a tapestry of tribes, Cheyenne, Apache, Kiowa, Osage, united by freedom. Abigail spent these days learning, contributing. She helped process roots, repaired lodges, began learning Cheyenne under Singing Bird, whose wit matched her name. Some welcomed her warmly, like Iron Elk, who treated her as a daughter, or Singing Bird, who shared her journey from a raised Pawnee village. Others kept distance, weighing her actions. A few, like Gray Owl, regarded her with suspicion, memories of settler betrayals raw. Running Wolf had warned her, and she accepted it as part of her path. Belonging was earned. This morning, Abigail was summoned to the council lodge for a final reckoning. The captured hunters, released blindfolded, kept their oath, spreading the truth about Caleb's abandonment. Willow Bend settlers turned on him, and he fled east, reputation in tatters. The threat was neutralized, but the council sought to address Abigail's future and the camp's security. Running Wolf waited at the lodge's entrance, expression solemn but warm. They are ready, he said. Abigail smoothed her dress, stepping inside. The council circle was familiar, woven mats encircling a fire pit. Many moons presided, his snow-white braids framing wisdom. Elders and leaders watched as she sat, running wolf at her shoulder. Sage burned, its smoke curling, demanding truth. Many moons spoke. Abigail Harper, you chose to remain, a choice with weight for you and us. Your father's threat is gone, but others may follow. We decide your place and our path, Abigail nodded. I understand. My presence brings risk, but I want to contribute, strengthen this community. His eyes crinkled. Running Wolf speaks of your warrior's heart, seen in trap set, truth spoken, work done. But a heart is not enough. You must become one of us in spirit and skill. I'm ready, Abigail said. Your ways, languages, survival. I can teach reading, writing, numbers, tools to protect from settlers' tricks. Approval murmured, though Gray Owl frowned. She is a white girl, he said. Her blood draws danger. Singing Bird leaned forward. Her blood didn't stop her facing armed men or speaking truth. She's earned her place, Iron Elk nodded. She walked our paths, shared burdens. Let her prove herself. Many moons raised a hand. The council has heard. Abigail Harper, you are accepted, a student of our ways. Train with hunters, weavers, healers. Share your knowledge. The path is not easy. Winter tests us all. I'm not afraid of hard, Abigail said. I've faced worse. Laughter broke tension, even Gray Owl's lips twitching. Many moons nodded. Then it is decided. You are one of us in training. But another matter, he paused grave. Your father fled, but men like him do not forget. He may seek soldiers from Fort Kearney under guise of rescue. We have lived as shadows. Now we prepare to stand. The council shifted to strategy, voices debating. Swift Fox proposed strengthening sentinels. Singing Bird suggested alliances with free bands. Abigail listened. I know my father's ways, she said when prompted. He'll rally men with lies, bribe an officer. But he's a coward, confront him and he crumbles. Running Wolf nodded. We send scouts to watch the fort. If he moves, we act first. Many moons agreed. This is our fight, Abigail. Your knowledge gives an edge. As the session ended, Abigail stepped into the morning light, the camp bustling. Children darted, women sang, men sharpened arrows. This was her world, struggle and joy woven together. Running Wolf joined her. You spoke with power, he said. The council listens because you've earned it. I surprised myself, Abigail admitted, smiling. A month ago, I was scared to speak. Now I'm planning with warriors. Hardship reveals the gold within, Running Wolf said. You are finding yours. Abigail considered this, the truth settling deep. The ordeal, abandonment, journey, confrontation burned away fear, revealing resilience. What happens now? She asked. You learn, he replied. Hunt with Swift Fox, weave with Singing Bird, heal with medicine women. Teach letters to children. Each step makes you more of us. He paused, eyes distant. And we prepare. The world your father represents hungers for our land. Abigail nodded, hope balancing the weight. I'll be ready, she said. For all of it, Running Wolf's smile flashed, brief but warm. I know you will, Abigail Harper. As she walked toward Singing Bird's lodge, the camp's rhythm enveloped her, clatter of tools, children's laughter, elders' chants. This was no longer refuge but home, where she could grow, contribute, belong. The prairie stretched beyond, vast and untamed, its secrets hers to learn. Abigail Harper, once a discarded daughter, was now a daughter of the Cheyenne, a warrior in training, a keeper of her own story. The future was uncertain but hers to shape, with the courage of the land itself.